As the great Lil Wayne said, Luka a hoe? Let's find out on this episode.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the PHNX Suns podcast. I'm Lindsay, that's Gerald, that's Espo. And are you guys ready for this episode? Yesterday, we looked at teams around the Western Conference and dove into what threats and competition they will bring to the Suns this upcoming season. But today, we're taking the deeper dives. We're going to be talking about the Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Are you prepared?
I'm very prepared. I'm excited. We have two great guests lined up for today, too.
If it weren't for the guests, I wouldn't be excited. But because of them, yes, I'm all in.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and bring in our first guest, Tim Cato from DLLS. Yes, that's right. The sister of PHNX, the newest member to the ALLCITY family. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just launched the in studio. Been doing shows for a few days. It's exciting. It's real exciting right now.
We remember those days back when PHNX launched. We were all doe-eyed and excited, and now we just love each other like a perfect family, right?
What was that, 25 years ago?
I'm really glad that we're like giving him this
we're like it's
rosy
all
picture.
Dark days ahead.
Yeah, Tim, we're just brutally honest at the end of August. That's just the road we travel.
We kid.
You gotta be. You gotta be. It's the NBA in late August. This is the dead period. We laugh so we don't cry.
All right, well, let's go ahead and dive into the Dallas Mavericks here. Obviously, the Suns and the Mavs, we don't get along very well. We'll go into off-season moves when it comes to the Mavs here in just a minute. But overall, what are your expectations for this team this upcoming season after coming off a finals run last year?
I just think that there's going to be another Luka meme involving Devin Booker. That is my number one expectation. It's got to happen. We need our annual one. Had to throw it out there. It's only fair. To bring it back around. I don't know. I think Dallas is in a really interesting place. They are the reigning Western Conference champions, and they're not seen as the favorites to do that again. I think that much is clear. I am not. We had a whole show today about are the Mavericks being disrespected. It wasn't really that, though. Like we got very esoteric about what is disrespect, what is fandom, why do we care about it? It's been a topic. I've seen a lot of shows, team shows, for us and elsewhere, kind of talking about disrespect. I don't think Dallas is disrespected, but I do think there is a sense that both their series wins against the Thunder and their series win against Minnesota, I feel like there was some asterisks put on it. Some that were fair and some that were not. And that, when they got to Boston and just how easily they were, taken out in that series, I do get a sense that people are like, oh, well, finally the team showed who they are. But clearly this is a very good team. And in my opinion, they got better. The reason they lost to Boston, you can point and, choose your own adventure of what the biggest reason was. Was it Luka and his injuries and his ineffectiveness, or was it Kyrie just being unable to, hit a single jump shot in the city of Boston, a place that he clearly hasn't totally got over, or at least needed the series to get over? But to me, the biggest reason they lost is because they had nobody above the break who could hit three-pointers. Boston did a good job saying, we saw how the corner three-point shooters, the role players, we saw how that shot really elevated them. Boston just did not give those players those shots, and they did not have the players to hit threes, and it just turned into an offensive slog. Boston's offense was also not very good. That might have just been randomness. But Dallas's offense was not very good because they did not have the shooting they needed. So what did they do? They went out this summer and they got shooting. And we'll see whether that disrupts the formula of what got them to the finals last year too much, whether the defense takes a step back. I think it will take a small step back. But clearly, this is going to be a much better offensive team, a much better shooting team. Quite frankly, I think it's going to be the best offense in the NBA.
Interesting. Tim, you mentioned the shooting aspect. Obviously, Klay Thompson, the big addition on that front. What are your expectations for Klay at this point? Because there's been a lot of chatter on both sides of it that Klay elevates the shooting, obviously, but this version of Klay, not the same splash brother or defender that we've seen in the past. What are kind of your realistic expectations for what he can and can't bring to the equation at this point?
Yeah, he was still good last season. I do think that his season last year was painted a little bit by that, season-ending 0 of 10 shooting performance. This is still a guy who averaged 19 points, shot 40% on threes. Clearly still a very, very good shooter, a very good player. Yeah, he's not the defender he was. I don't think that he is a disaster on that end, but he is somebody probably better at guarding threes and fours, just like Luka, just like PJ Washington. So that's going to be interesting in the starting lineup just to see how that plays out. But yeah, I still think he's going to be a good player. The big question for him is just, who does he want to be? Is he accepting that he's in the twilight of his career, that he's not quite the same player? Is he still trying to prove himself as this old player? I think that's something that got in his way at times in Golden State. But now he's out of that environment. It's almost like moving to a new apartment, and you're just gone of all the memories of whatever breakups, whatever like weird nights you had or bad memories. You're gone of all that stuff. It's a lot like that. And if that allows him to be completely rejuvenated and really accept the role that Dallas is presenting to him, which is a big role, but it's not the splash brother second superstar on a championship team. If he accepts that, I think he's going to be a really good addition. I do think that it is a fascinating move with some questions. I just don't think there's a lot of questions that he's still going to be a really good offensive player.
Just to be clear, this is a program that disrespects the Mavs, but you lost Derrick Jones Jr., obviously a big part of the finals run. You replace him with Najee Marshall. Do you think it's an improvement or at least a standing pat in what you have there now?
I think it's a downgrade based off what Dallas needs, which is, I was kind of talking how Dallas has a bunch of players who are best suited to guard the 3 and the 4. And what Derrick Jones Jr. did so well for the Mavericks last season was he was the point guard defender. And quite frankly, I got to a point where, maybe just proximity bias, but I legitimately thought that he was a top 10, top 15 point of attack defender in the entire NBA. That's how much he impressed me as a defender out on the perimeter, navigating screens. Najee's a good defender. He is a plus defender, but he is someone who's a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier. He's not going to run our screens in the same way. On the flip side, he shot much better last season, and he's going to get better shots in Dallas, cleaner shots than he did in New Orleans. He's also he has a fun, quirky, some ability to self-create. That's something that Dallas has really leaned into. A couple seasons ago, Dallas went to the conference finals, as I'm sure y'all know. And but they did it with a roster that was full of these offensive role players who could do one thing. They could spot up and they could shoot. Dallas, over the last 2 years, has made a very pointed effort to diversify what this offense can be, so that it doesn't always come down to Luka bearing the load single-handedly. Obviously, he's the alpha of the offense. He is going to have the ball in his hands. Maybe too much. Maybe he shouldn't have it for 10 minutes per game. But just the fact that he doesn't have to do it all alone, that there are players who have a little bit more juice and burst, I think that's definitely a added benefit for this team. It's just that he's another guy. Najee's another guy who isn't really going to guard the point guards, the speedsters, stuff like that. It's a lot of hope that this team is putting in Dante Exum, who was on the team last year, and another new addition, Quentin Grimes, who you guys may want to ask me about. Up to y'all, your show.
Not yet, not right now.
Not yet. Okay, there we go.
You can absolutely tell us more about what you think Quentin Grimes brings to the squad. But what I was going to ask you is if you have specific concerns with this group for this upcoming season? I mean, there's a lot of things to be excited about, but are there any that you're like, still need to maybe see how this one plays out?
Well, that's kind of one. It's like I'm not quite sure they have all the defenders to guard all the types of excellent offensive players there are in the league. And Quentin Grimes is one guy who should be able to go guard those speedy, quicker point guards. But he's had injury problems. It's still baffling to me that Detroit just kind of gave him away in a salary dump. But one reason, and I've kind of reported this before, said this before, but I do know that his Detroit had worries and concerns about his knee. And so if he's not going to be healthy and available, I do wonder just how much of a step back this defense takes. They still have Derek Lively. They still have Daniel Gafford. They still have, the guys in the middle and the interior to be, formidable shot blockers. Certainly still have plenty of defenders throughout the roster. But if you're playing Kyrie, Clay, and Luka a lot together, even though Clay is a bit better, Luka can defend at times. Kyrie, when he locks in, he's a pretty solid defender. But that's still a big question, and just how much of how much of a step back the defense takes as compared to the offense, and how much of a step forward it takes. That's the huge question about this summer, this offseason, and whether that trade-off is worth it.
Tim, to your point about that, once you guys made the trade deadline moves for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, it felt like that group hit the ground running from that point on. From their first game, I think they had the 4th best record, 6th best point differential. Do you envision this group with some of the new additions being able to fit in as seamlessly? Because it felt like as soon as those new guys came in, they just they blended in so quickly. Do you see this Mavs team maybe having a leg up compared to last season when they had to do it in the second half of the season, kind of figure things out on the fly?
I think so. I think the move, like PJ Washington, was a great fit, and it made more sense, raised this team's ceiling more. But I think Daniel Gafford was the guy who really changed just the regular season dominance. How this team was at one point, 16-2 to finish the year before they rested guys to close the year. Just having 48 minutes of rim running, shot blocking, dunking centers. That is such a huge advantage in the regular season. And Daniel Gafford, I mean, he's somebody who hit 33 consecutive shots. It's no surprise to me that a bulk of those shots came against Chicago and Detroit. The lowest, the low teams in this league, the bad teams, the tanking teams, they don't really have the athleticism and the size, or at least the discipline, to guard Gafford and Lively as an extension of the Luka pick and roll. And I just think that made the regular season really easy down the stretch for these guys. And so I think that's going to be the biggest thing going into next season. And everybody beneath that, with obviously Luka and Kyrie still there to run the show and, put things in the direction they need to, I do think it will be a pretty seamless fit for, a lot of these role players Dallas has added.
Tim, as you can tell, we like to have a little fun here at PHNX, and with DLLS Mavs as the newest member of the ALLCITY family, I wanted to propose a bet. My cohorts here suggested this based on the Suns Mavs head-to-head this year. There's 4 games. If there's a tie, we base it on overall record. Loser has to wear I'm a Ho shirts on their show at the end of the season.
I'll do that. I mean, that's amazing. Lil Wayne.
Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, Lil Wayne is a legend. I love that man. I'll wear any quote of it. Well, maybe not any. He's got some lyrics that maybe couldn't wear on the shirt. But I'm a Ho, sure, absolutely.
I'm so excited for this. Now, the second part of this, though, is do you think you can convince your counterparts at DLLS Mavs to also join in? So it's like a group bet here, group project.
I think so. I mean, let me give them a talk. Let me set them down tomorrow. Let me explain the stakes. I'm just an unbiased, journalist here, but I think these guys are going to have some strong feelings that they're going to win the bet. That's my guess. But yeah. Also, it's not even a bad thing. It's fun to be a Ho.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like, this is going to be fun because, like you said, we're going to get memes from the actual games. We'll probably get some really great clips and maybe even some memes from this back and forth going on right now and throughout the entire season. So this just adds to how much fun this is going to be.
As the fellow unbiased journalist, I love his willingness to participate as well. You got to learn to pick your battles in this industry. So I love that you're on board already.
Yeah, exactly. To me, it's about Lil Wayne, so like, anything to support, one of the legends of the industry. Absolutely.
I love this.
And if we can have some fun with it too, hell yeah.
I'm so excited for this. It's going to be a blast. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your insight. Congratulations once again on the launch of DLLS. We're excited for you guys for the upcoming season. We will be supporting you when you're not playing us. Kinda.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll see you next time. Everyone be sure to follow Tim on social at Tim_Cato. Bye, Tim. Okay. I like him.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad
great.
he's part of the family. That was super fun. I'm so excited for this bet. I was nervous because it's like 3 days into the new gig. Are we going to be able to convince him to be on board with the ridiculous shenanigans that we've got going on over here? I'm so excited for this. It's going to make that season even more fun.
I will give him, I feel like it took Gerald a little longer to ease into the hijinks shenanigans.
It did.
And Tim, right away, he's like, I've seen this bit. I know what Gerald does there. Now I'm in.
On board with it. All right, we will continue this conversation, but I do want to remind you guys that the PHNX Cardinals squad is taking Miami with true fan travel to watch the Cardinals take on the Dolphins October 27th, and you can be a part of that trip. It is going down October 25th through October 28th, heading out to Miami, and it's going to be an absolute blast of a trip. So head to truefantravel.com/trips to book your spot today and get all the information about what will be happening out in Miami with our friends at PHNX Cardinals. All right, before we come back from break, I do want to remind you that this Thursday at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, you can join the PHNX sports crew for the PHNX Fantasy Football live draft at Wild Horse Pass Hotel and Casinos, or Resorts and Casinos. It's going to be tipping off at 6:30 p.m. We're going to have giveaways, drinks, specials, and immaculate vibes. It's always immaculate vibes when you are hanging out with our friends at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, because no one does it better than them. We're also going to have a lot of Suns takeover or watch parties and events happening out there this upcoming season, so keep an eye out for that. But you don't have to wait until Sun season gets here and for our events to head out and take in Gila River Resorts and Casinos. They've got over 4,500 slots and live table games, or you can catch the D-backs at one of their sports books. There's a lot of great things that you can take in, including upscale and approachable and casual eateries throughout their facilities. So you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playathila.com for more details.
I'm on the wrong day, so I'm going to get to the right day. I almost read the wrong ad.
Guess what? I can promise you this ad is not going to be ordinary, because it's never ordinary at
Bet365. It didn't matter. It was the same ad.
There you go.
Hey, sometimes it works, sometimes it does. Look, Bet365 is my favorite place that you can put a wager on any sport that you love. Baseball, hockey, football, basketball, whatever it is, they've got it. And college football starts this weekend. So you're going to want to be betting on games live. In-game bets. That's what you want to do. It's so much fun. And Bet365 started the trend. They were the first to do it, and they did it oh so well that they've continued throughout. Don't accept anybody else that's trying to sell you on the idea that they do it right. Bet365 are the only ones that do. And right now, if you sign up using that promo code PHNX365, you're going to get two offers, right? The bet and get, where if you place any bet of $5 or more, you are going to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That easy, right? Or you do the first bet safety net, and you can bet up to $1,000. And if you lose, you still get your money back in bonus bets. That simple. So we want to encourage you to head over to Bet365 and sign up today. Download the app. Use the promo code PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365 or on this program. Must be 21 and physically located. Must be 21 or older, not just 21. And physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT STEP to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov.
Yeah, you can be old and still participate
This
in
is true.
Bet365. You don't have to be a youngin'.
I know because I am in my 40s and still participate. So
You and Flex both.
I'm double, almost
Old as
double
hell.
the
Just kidding.
21. I mean, it's fine.
Old as hell.
Just had to throw a little
I
shade
mean,
on
I
it, 'cause
am.
why not?
Her words, not mine.
But he repeated it. Did you
Yeah.
see that? Did you see that? Anyway, let's go back to the Dallas Mavericks. Okay. So good stuff from Tim in that conversation there. When we look at the Mavs, obviously 50-32 record last season. They finished 5th in the West and made it all the way to the finals. The finals was kind of rough for them. But they had some additions and some losses this offseason. Key additions, obviously, Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes, like we discussed. Key losses, Derek Jones Jr., Josh Green, and Tim Hardaway Jr. How are you guys kind of feeling about the state of the Mavs right now?
I feel like they're a team that, like I said, like it felt like the new additions that they picked up blended in so quickly. They really took off after that point in like mid-February. And we saw what happened in the playoffs. And we're a team that unfortunately has seen what can happen when you go up against Luka Doncic in the playoffs. Is they can be any seed. Like they were the 5 seed and they went all the way to the finals. As long as they're somewhere in that top 6 and don't have to deal with the play-in, they are a threat to beat whoever they're matched up with. And that's in a crowded West just by the virtue of having Luka Doncic, by the virtue of having Kyrie Irving, who, as we've seen, is capable of rising to those playoff heights, and just having shooters and defenders around them. I do think a lot of people in the chat have been bringing up their defense will get worse, and I agree with that to a certain extent. I think Najee Marshall is decent, but they do lose that point of attack defender that Derek Jones Jr. was. I do think in terms of their three-point shooting attack, like Tim brought up, it's going to be a little bit more varied instead of just corner three-point shooters. And I do think, like, when you look at guys like Gafford and Washington with a full year under their belt now and a training camp and all that stuff to continue building chemistry, this is a team that maybe stacks up more regular season wins than they did last year. But even if they don't, like I said, they are a dangerous playoff squad just by virtue of what they have put around Luka and Kyrie.
I feel like when you look at it, we talk about continuity with the Suns a lot, and that's going to be a big part of if they can perform this year. The Mavs are going to benefit from that too, because they made the big deals at the deadline. Kyrie in what essentially is year 2 with Luka, that's going to pay dividends. But for me, it still comes down to, what does Klay Thompson still have in the tank?
Yeah.
Can he actually be this 3-point shooter that they feel like they really need? And how does he play alongside Luka and Kyrie? Does it work? Because their defense may take a step back, like we heard Tim talk about. So can their offense make up that difference? And if Klay isn't the guy that they hope he is, I don't think their defense can make up for that. So I think this all hinges on, at least when it comes to a title contending hope, maybe not, obviously West playoffs, they'll be there, but title contending hope, I think Klay is a big part of that.
And I think the offense is the 3-point shooting, he's going to provide that. Even last year in his washed up form or whatever people want to call it, he's still taking 9 threes a game and making 38% of them. Like, he's still an elite shooter, and putting that next to Kyrie and Luka with the attention that they're able to draw feels unfair, because like Tim brought up, he can be an above the break 3-point shooter, which they didn't really have much of in that playoff run. So that's worrisome. But yeah, the defensive end, everything else, because with the Warriors, when he was that prime splash brother, it wasn't just the shooting. Now it's kind of just the shooting. And so that might be worrisome on that end. And then defensively, he's not the same lockdown guy he used to be at all.
I mean, when you bring up defense, there's a conversation happening in the chat, and Ted brought up that Derek Jones Jr. was one of their best point of attack defenders. Josh Green was a menace on defense last year too. Who is that, or are those guys for the Mavs this year?
I mean, I will say that I think the Mavs, like losing Derek Jones Jr. hurts from the point of attack, but everybody on that defense really locked in throughout that playoff run. And if you get that same type of buy-in from Luka and Kyrie, that's huge. Like, I know everybody made a big deal about it in the finals when he was not good defensively at all. But for every series up to that point, he was, and Kyrie was too. If you get that again, I don't know if you'll get it during the regular season because 82 games is a grind. I don't know that you'll need it at some point, but maybe Quentin Grimes can be that guy because he's pretty good defensively. Najee Marshall is decent defensively. He's not Derek Jones Jr., but I think you're going to need a collective team effort, and I think there's going to be more of an onus on their two rim protectors in Gafford and Derek Lively to block a few more shots because they're not going to be able to contain on the perimeter as well as they did last year.
The other question I have too, and this is brought up in the chat, Luka is young, right? He is a spring chicken, but the load he carries for the Mavs is insane.
Yeah.
Is there concern? I mean, even Tim kind of brought it up, like kind of joking that maybe Luka carries a little bit too much of the load. At what point do you really have to start considering how much you're asking from him?
I think now you say he's a spring chicken, but you got to consider he started playing professionally overseas at a very young age. He's obviously had additional miles with the Slovenian national team. I really think they have to make sure that they're starting to consider that, right? Because at some point you can't have him be the only thing and the main focus all the time and playing huge minutes. At some point you have to make sure you're protecting the guy that's the face of your franchise and be in a position where you're good enough around him that you can do that because, as we heard, the Lakers want to bring him in to be the face of their franchise. Well, if you're Dallas, you want to do what you can to make him as happy as possible. I don't want that personally, but I know if you're the Mavs, you want to do that. So I think you actually have to consider that right now even.
I do wonder, though, like how much of it is by necessity at this point and how much of it is he's just a heliocentric basketball player. Like I think that's kind of what he prefers, is to operate with the ball in his hand a lot and to bear a lot of that load. Like they went out and got him a guy who can create his own shot with Kyrie, and he still has very high usage levels. So I wonder how much of it is Jason Kidd and the Mavs and who they have around him, and how much of it is like that's Luka's preferred playing style. I'm sure he would like to take a little bit of that burden off, but I think part of what makes Luka special is very similar to James Harden. Like you want that guy with the ball in his hands as much as possible and let everything else kind of evolve and trickle down from that.
The Luka special. I like what you did there.
Listen, I am very excited for our Suns Mavs matchups this season, because even though Tim was joking with us and said we're definitely going to get another meme of some sort between Luka and Book, I will say they are always good games. They're always fun in some capacity. I mean, listen, even they're devastating when we lose them, but when we win, we have an absolute blast.
There was a reason Tim said that. He put his call out for questions for tomorrow's episode, and I replied with, can we finally retire the Book Luka meme? And, so that's where that came from. He's just saying, even if we do, there'll be another. So,
I mean, that's true. Listen, I get it. When are we going to retire Luka? Ho? Never.
The journalist in me hates the fact that meme came in a game the Suns won by like double digits, but it became the picture of the series because of what happened after that. It drives me crazy to no end.
It'll be a good series or a good matchup whenever we face off against the Mavs. But here's the deal, you guys. We have to take a quick break. Not for advertisements that you're used to anyway.
Oh, interesting.
But it is that time of year. We do have some election advertisements to get to. Since we gave airtime to Espo. Espo, what are we going to do
has
here?
Espo has some responding to do.
I need to respond. That's where we're going.
Okay.
We're not going to air the slanderous garbage that happened on Rising last night. The tomfoolery and twaddle that happened. That I got to say, if there's attack ads out there and you want a mayor that's going to be involved with him and not willing to put his own name on said ad, vote for my opponent, Derek Montilla. I encourage you if that's what you want. But to me, this means something much more. This is about the heart of the city. You, the fans, you, the people that are so important to everything we do at PHNX, the people in this building, everybody that makes this such a great community. And I want to be a mayor for each and every one of you. I want to reach across the aisle to every beat, to every fan group, and be there for every diehard that has something that is bothering them when it comes to our sports teams. Derek has done a job. I'll say that of what he's done over the last 3 years, but you deserve better, and I will provide that. That's why I am here running for your mayor of PHNX, and I promise you a brighter future because your pain is my pain and your beef is my beef.
We got some of his bots in the chat, man. That's rough.
So I do have to correct you on one thing. You are correct. We are not going to play the ad that aired on Rising yesterday. You have to go to Rising to see that. But here's the thing. There's this rule where you have to give equal time to both opponents. It's the journalistic thing to do with integrity.
Actually, it's not a law anymore, but sure, go ahead.
So there's this.
Conspiracy theories, crazy lies, bizarre obsessions. When Espo puts his tinfoil hat on, you never know what he's going to say.
Some mysterious things are happening on the internet, and the fact that they don't have a head coach says one thing and one thing only to me, that LeBron James hasn't committed to staying in LA. With the rumors that LeBron James might be willing to take a vet minimum, and with Rich Paul saying that LeBron is a free agent slipping up during the TNT broadcast, could LeBron James to Phoenix actually be happening?
Do you want a real mayor for PHNX? Or just another conspiracy kook? Espo, he's not just radical, he's dangerous.
Ethical Standards and PHNX Officials is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Oh my God, that's insane.
I don't need super PACs. I don't need other people to write my ads or claim things that just simply aren't true. You all know that's a bit. I'm here for the entertainment. I'm here for you, the people. Mm-hmm. So if Derek and those that support Derek want to go down that road, that's their prerogative. But I'll be here for you, slaving over a hot mic every day while Derek does whatever it is that he's behind now.
So for anybody in the chat or listening right now who's like, what the actual F is happening? At one point in time, Derek just somehow became the mayor of PHNX.
No.
Self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed.
Yes. We don't know how. It just happened. And then all of us were like, okay. Mm-hmm. But apparently now is the time that people are deciding to put their foot down. Mm-hmm. And we have a full-on election on our hands here at PHNX. And yes, some of you will be a part of the vote. So make sure you do your due diligence and research all the candidates and ask the tough questions because we're going to have a new mayor here in just a few months.
Owen asking the tough questions, one of our rising hosts, and I'll answer it directly. So you're telling us you're a joke, Espo. What I'm telling you is I am a purveyor of joy, and that's what's important to me. And if Derek and others don't want joy, that's fine. Vote for them.
All right. Now that we have given equal airtime to both candidates, we can move on in our program and start talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves last year finished with a 56-26 record, third in the West, made it to the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, they swept the Suns. Not a great time was had from a Suns perspective. Their offseason movements includes key additions being Joe Ingles, Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon Jr. Their key losses, Kyle Anderson, Monte Morris, and Jordan McLaughlin. How are you guys feeling about the state of the Timberwolves right now?
I like that loss of Monte Morris.
Yeah, no,
Same, I'm not mad at it.
That's great. That makes us happy.
Thank you.
This is a team that I am worried about. I feel like they have pretty much their entire core intact, and most of their core are younger guys that still have room to grow together. We saw the difference it made between year 1 and year 2 for them with Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. And even if Gobert is on the older side compared to some of their other players, I still feel like there's room for this team to grow. I think the Anthony Edwards hype has reached a fever pitch that maybe is beyond what he is at this point in time, but he's still a fantastic player. We saw that firsthand. I think Jaden McDaniels is a young guy that I'm keeping an eye on. That dude is already a lockdown defender. And if he becomes even, 80% of the offensive potential that we saw in our series when he was knocking down threes and getting to the rim and slashing and doing all these different things, they're going to be really tough to stop on either end. So they're a team to me that I feel like all the attention is on the Oklahoma City Thunder, rightfully so, because they're the younger team. They're going to be really good as well. But the Timberwolves are kind of scary to me just because they have most of their team intact. But I do have some questions about, not being able to go out and add very much in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this team and there's no denying how good Anthony Edwards is. You can joke about it, whatever, but the kid is very good. Now, is he 89 Jordan? Probably not, but nobody is really. But he's going to be very good. McDaniels is going to be very good. My questions lie with Cat and Gobert. And can those guys, A, stay healthy, B, does Father Time start to catch up with Rudy Gobert in particular? And then you look at, okay, Mike Conley has been great for them, but he's a 37-year-old point guard, and we know something about that here in Phoenix. And can you expect him to have a relatively healthy season? And if not, who's your backup? You've got a rookie in Dillingham behind him, but that's my biggest thing there is, do you really expect a rookie to be able to potentially have to lead you for stretches of this and be the guy, come the playoffs? And can he play the defense that you're going to need in the playoffs?
And I mean, honestly, that's a tough task to ask of any rookie, regardless of where you fell in the draft or how NBA ready people think you are. There's always kind of just this weird phase of trying to get incorporated into what the NBA is all about. So it's a big ask to ask of Rob Dillingham to run that entire second unit. Monte Morris was a huge hit for them.
He was, but I will also say, like, Monte Morris's playing time fluctuated. They went with him. They went with Jordan McLaughlin. They had Kyle Anderson run things. Those are the three names that are on their departures list this offseason. So it is going to be pretty squarely on this rookie who I really like. I really do like Dillingham. But his first season, I mean, that's a lot to put on a first-year player on a team that is contending for a championship right now. So that's my biggest question mark with them. But to be perfectly honest, like, they do have pretty much everybody back, and they were already a good team that made the conference finals last year. I think with another year under their belt, the number one defense, if they can get their offense to anywhere near that territory, they're going to be pretty tough.
Well, and you already know you're going to see another step forward from Anthony Edwards, especially after the Olympics. I'm sure he picked up quite a few additional tips and tricks from being able to play with the legends that he was playing with out there. Psycho Blue did send us a super chat and said, "It's been a few months now, and I still feel like I stepped into a twilight zone where everyone is excited for the Wolves and the Suns are at their mercy." Also, Ingles, Conley, and Gobert are old too.
They are, but Ingles no longer plays, or I guess he does play, but he's kind of a piece that I don't think they're going to rely on very heavily. I think Conley and Gobert, that's a fair point, but I think Ingles is kind of more of a veteran luxury that you have coming off the bench in those Kyle Anderson minutes, more so than someone they're going to be like, we really need 6th man of the year, Joe Ingles type stuff.
Yeah, do you really think Cat and Gobert can be an effective pair as Gobert ages, though, and potentially isn't as good of a rim protector as he ages? Like, I look at it and I wonder, like, is that sustainable? I think they're a very good team. I just don't think the sweep was necessarily indicative of how this will play out this year based on some of what the Wolves lost, some of what the Suns gained. I think that these two teams are at least much closer than it looked like in the playoffs last year.
Well, you hope so, because if they're not, then a sweep not making up any ground on a sweep is rough. But I do think, like, Rudy Gobert is getting older, but he's still only 32. I know a lot of people are going to look at the Olympic usage and whatnot, but I mean, they figured out how to make those two bigs work when pretty much all of us dismissed it after the first year together. We're like, yeah, that's not going to work. It did work last year, and it created problems in the fact that how are you going to guard a 7-footer Gobert diving to the rim and still have enough size on Cat who can spread you out to 3-point range? Like, that was tough. Conley's the one that I have the most concerns about, because we saw in the playoffs him go through stretches where it was kind of like, okay, he's still a veteran, he's still very good, and then stretches where it was like, this dude has missed like 6 or 7 shots in a row. So he's the one that I have the most concern about, but I do think they have everything they need to be a force in the West again.
But here's the X factor. Okay. 1, we're going to want revenge because of the sweep.
Sure.
We're going to get the Monte Morris revenge game as well at some point. Yep. Maybe multiple.
Hopefully.
And we already got their game plan because we stole their guy. Monte Morris is bringing us all the scoop, all the behind-the-scene info that we need.
It's our inside source.
We're good.
We have a man inside the building.
Could we also get a Tyus Jones revenge game too? In there?
Yeah, right? Long delayed one.
Yeah.
Well, for us at least. Yeah.
Revenge is always possible, no matter how long it is.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. This is an interesting one. Definitely a team that everyone has towards the top of their list as far as the West goes this year. And it's a weird situation to be in from a Suns fan kind of perspective, because obviously absolutely hate them for the way that things went down in the playoffs. You could say that was our fault. You could put the blame on us. You could say the Timberwolves definitely just whooped up on us, whatever you want to do. Either which way, you want that revenge and you're kind of angry about the way in which everything unfolded. But then you see all the stuff from the Olympics with KD and Ant and Book and Ant and them being friendly. And you're like, well, it's kind of hard to hate this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there is a very large likability when it comes to Anthony Edwards. So you're kind of stuck in that weird spot, but I really would love a nice revenge game coming out the gates.
I'd like 4 of them.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad at that either,
yeah,
but at least give me one good one.
I don't even care about the regular season, but if you get them in the playoffs, great.
Yeah, you can lose all of them in the regular season as long as you win 4 of them in the playoffs. I'm good.
All right, well, we do have a Timberwolves expert joining us here in just a second. But first, in case you forgot, our friends at Circle K are hooking it up with their free membership program, the Inner Circle. First and foremost, you're going to save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. You save 3 cents per gallon every single day. But this is the big one. Tomorrow, Thursday, you can get 40 cents off per gallon
40.
at Circle K all day.
40.
40.
Wow.
I'll say it even though it doesn't apply. Nice.
It does apply. 40 cents off is a big deal. So make sure you sign up today for that free membership program. Join Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app. Today, terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. But listen, it's not just the gas discounts that Circle K is hooking you up with. There's also discounts on a variety of items that you can find at Circle K. Like right now, you can get any size Polar Pop or Froster for just 79 cents at any Arizona location. You can find that deal in your app under Inner Circle and offers. They always have coupons and like buy one, get one, or buy 6, get 1 free type of things. So definitely check it out and take advantage, because who doesn't love saving money? Coupons are the best.
Most Lindsay thing ever. I don't have a coupon for you, but I do have one of the best venues in the West Valley to tell you about. Our friends at Chicken and Pickle. And coming this football season, it's Tailgates by PHNX out at Chicken and Pickle. If you're heading out to the game, it's the only spot you need to go to. It is going to be fantastic. If you haven't seen Chicken and Pickle, the venue is gorgeous. The food is unbelievable. And if you're a pickleball player, you're not going to find a better place to get on the court and beat the heat, because they've got the indoor courts. Or once it's nice out, in November, you can go to the outdoor courts and play as well. I can't recommend Chicken and Pickle enough. I have so much fun when I'm out there. I live in the East Valley and I make the trek out there because it's that worth it. It's amazing to be out there. And even if you're new to pickleball, they've got newbie nights that you can have and kind of get to know the game of pickleball. So check it out. Head to chickenandpickle.com to see all the fun you can have at their Glendale location.
All right, we will go ahead and pitch it over to our Minnesota Timberwolves expert, Dan, who joined us earlier today to talk about the Wolves. Welcoming into the program now, our Minnesota Timberwolves expert, Dan Barreiro, KFAN Sports radio host. Dan, thank you so much for stopping by and joining us today.
I'm pleased to be with you. I didn't realize it was pro basketball season already, but I guess for some of you in the business, it's pretty much year round, correct?
That's correct. It never stops, especially around these parts.
5 days a week, every week. So.
Yeah. Well, listen, Dan, for the Timberwolves last year, I think it was a great season. They finished with a 56-26 record. They finished third in the West, made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. What are your expectations for them for this upcoming season?
Well, it's interesting because the Wolves, I'm sure you guys know at least some of the fractured, vulnerable history of this organization. You know, it had been 20 years since they'd even gotten out of the first round, and it's only the second time in the history of the franchise that they've gotten out of the first round. So people were giddy. I think the main reason there is so much more optimism than there was when they advanced to the conference finals 20 years ago is the obvious. You know, back then it was the so-called MV3. It was Kevin Garnett, who was still very much in his prime, but two aging veterans who they got maximum mileage out of back then. That was Sam Cassell and Latrell Sprewell. But it was always a kind of a pact with the devil because Cassell got hurt a lot. In fact, he didn't even finish the playoffs that year, part of the reason that they didn't have their best chance to advance. And Sprewell wanted him. That's when he made the famous comment when they offered him, I think it was 3 years, $21 million. I got to feed my family. So the whole thing, my point, was fraught. It wasn't going to be more than a 1-year chance to make that threesome work. And 20 years later, you've got a core of players. You certainly have some age on this team, but you've got a core of players that are still young enough to think that there's no reason that at the very least the Wolves should not be relevant and credible in a very loaded Western Conference for several years to come.
So, Dan, to your point about the continuity, obviously with the new CBA rules and everything and the success that this group had, they're running it back with largely the same guys. Anthony Edwards is kind of the obvious answer here, but is there anyone that you're looking towards with this young group in terms of this is a guy that could maybe take a step forward in the upcoming season?
Well, they're actually counting on one or both rookies they drafted in the first round being those X factors. And that's a little risky, and maybe it's asking too much too soon. Mm-hmm. But as you guys probably know, they're in salary cap hell now. I mean, they're way over the limit. And so there really wasn't anything in free agency of a significant nature that they were going to be able to do. So I think that explains why Tim Conley, the president of basketball operations, said, we're going to go, we've identified a couple players, especially Rob Dillingham, that we like both short-term and long-term as the long-term answer to Mike Conley, the point guard, who is obviously getting older, and Terrence Shannon, that are players they think if they handle them the right way and they keep, the expectations reasonable, that they hope certainly long-term they help them take the next step. Because otherwise it's going to have to become pretty much all internal. There are a couple other young guys maybe worth talking about, but to me, I fully think they believe that they're going to get something, maybe not at the start of the season, but over the course of the season, something out of both of those guys, and they almost view them now as the X factors beyond Anthony Edwards, presumably taking another step. Naz Reid's got some growth that he could still do, especially defensively and in some other areas of consistency, I think, with Reid, as much as he emerged this season. So they're in that position where I'm sure they were free agents. They said this guy could really help us, but they were out of money. So they pretty much had to go the draft, and I think it's why, to a certain extent, Conley decided to go all in moving assets to get what they think are one point guard of the future who can break people down, and the other guy, Terrence Shannon, who's older, but who they think can walk in, especially defensively, and for a team that prides itself on good defense, and contribute.
So does that mean Rob Dillingham is the backup point guard? And do we, does that feel like a sustainable option with a 37-year-old starting point guard?
It's a great question. I do think that's what they are projecting. I think that's, with Dillingham, what's interesting is it's almost like from the beginning, they're trying to go to him and say, this is serious stuff, man. We went after you for a reason. And we're expecting you to be a part of this from the beginning. Now, they may, once we get into the season, stop themselves and say, hold on a minute here. We're kidding ourselves. He may get there, but this may be too overwhelming for him. He obviously is a guy who's very slight, not a strong player at all, has some things that he has to get better at and learn. But they love, this is not a team beyond Anthony Edwards who really has anybody else that can create their own shot. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the other intrigue with Dillingham is they think, and I think he can do that from the beginning. The question is, can he, run a show? Can he handle things in that regard? But if, based on what I have been told, and we just had Conley, we're broadcasting all week from the Minnesota State Fair. We had him out with us at the booth yesterday. Their expectation is that Dillingham is at least going to get minutes as the backup almost from the beginning. Now, again, Anthony Edwards in a pinch can play some point. Now, another guy they used a lot, Slow-Mo, is gone. That will hurt them in that regard because he's another guy, he wasn't a pure point guard, but a guy who could run a show. So it's a fair question, but I think that's the way they're trying to project it, at least early.
You also brought up Terrence Shannon Jr. and you mentioned the defense, but beyond that, is there anything at Summer League that you saw from him that kind of excites you or creates a little bit of optimism around him?
Well, I have learned over the decades to be really careful about Summer League love. Because sometimes it holds up, sometimes it doesn't. And I think you guys could probably speak to this. It's harder and harder to not scratch that itch because it's become bigger and bigger. Culturally speaking, in basketball culture, TV is everywhere on it now. And as much as we keep telling ourselves, well, it's just Summer League, it really becomes hard to put the brakes on. All that out of the way, all right, I'll blow it out of proportion too, if you want. What impressed me about Shannon was how well he scored, how easy he scored. Now, was that a function of his age, where once he gets into the league, his physical maturity, the fact that he's further along isn't going to show up because he's going to be up against better, more consistent athletes? I'm not sure. But I liked what I saw about what he could do offensively. And I'll say again, their calling card is still defense. And this is where I think with Dillingham, it's a greater challenge. Dillingham is not a good defensive player right now. They're hoping they can mask that, they can get him to a better place. But I think they feel a lot stronger that from the first day, they can use Shannon in various matchups, and he's not going to get, embarrassed in the league from the beginning.
Dan, you've talked about the two rookies being potential X factors. The one other main addition the Timberwolves made this summer was obviously Joe Ingles. What do you kind of see him being able to provide in that sort of veteran role?
Specialty, it's hard to say exactly where he fits in. I think their choices were limited on the basis of the amount of money that they even had available to them. So I'm assuming you're looking for, smarts, knows how to play, knows how to fit in, maybe bigger roles in some games, smaller roles in other games as well, kind of that sort of combination. And I put it this way, if they have to get big stuff from him, I think that, they're kind of hurting. And I think they still look at the core players, obviously Edwards, Cat, Karl Anthony Towns, Naz Reid at the top of that list for sure, and saying, well, these guys all in their own ways certainly can get better. Now, Cat maybe at this point kind of is what he is, but he'll probably be healthier again. You got to remember, he got hurt last season, and I don't even think he was really fully 100% in the postseason. So I'm sure in his case, he's just further removed from the most recent injury. And they're still fully committed, by the way, based on everything I've said, to, the two set, Rudy and Cat playing a lot together. They think they figured that out last year. I wondered about the way it went for, Rudy in the Olympics. was that, maybe a caution flag that they're not going to be, something, maybe he's either slowing down again or maybe he's just not going to have as much in the tank this year. They're continuing to be stubborn about their belief in using both of those big men together, even though the French head coach, whose name now escapes me, obviously did not feel quite the same way when France, and you got to say, without him, played very well. And it's a different kind of basketball, as you guys know, to a certain extent. But I will tell you that I've learned the hard way. I didn't realize the degree to which there's a big part of the basketball culture nationwide that seems to revel in Rudy's failures. It's bizarre. I don't even completely understand it, but it's dramatic, and we saw a lot of that, I thought, during the Olympics as well.
I know you're on a time crunch, so I have the most important question here for you. You're out at the fair. What's the best and worst fried items you've seen?
Well, first of all, pretty much, yeah, everything is fried out here. The most underrated fried item, I think, believe it or not, I had to be talked into it, but once I've eaten it, I like fried olives.
Oh,
I'm a big green olive guy. It's the Spaniard in me, and I like. I actually think that's as I don't think it sounds very good, but actually is very, very tasty. There's probably several. Part of the problem with the fair is too many vendors think that instead of being creative and just coming up with a different food, that we got to put it on a stick or we got to fry it. And it's like, to me, there's some things you say, well, no, you don't. Just because you can fry, everything doesn't mean you necessarily have to try.
Well, we'll have some fried ants when you guys come to town here.
Boy.
It's a deal.
Dan, before we let you go, just one last question here.
Sure.
Biggest concern for this upcoming season. Do you have one?
Well, you guys have hit on it already. Is it realistic? I think in their perfect world, Mike Conley, who's been a revelation here for all the obvious reasons, by the way, I have him on every 2 weeks during the season. I've never worked with an athlete as classy as he is. All that stuff about him, sometimes you find out it's nonsense, reputation's different from the reality. He's just a wonderful person to deal with and been really a stabilizing influence for this team that needs that. And he's smart. He can still play enough, right? But in their perfect world, his minutes go down for sure because they want him fresh, which he wasn't completely fresh in the postseason. But that again means you're gonna trust Dillingham more significant minutes unless you find another option and answer, which is still possible, by the way, getting a journeyman guy. But that to me is the biggest question: is there a second person when Conley's on the bench, given you do not want him playing anywhere near like 36, 37, 40 minutes a night, that can continue to run the show without the whole thing falling apart? Is that too much to ask any rookie, even one as talented as Dillingham is?
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for hopping on, Dan. Make sure to enjoy a Pronto Pup for me at the Minnesota State Fair. And Dan, for those of you who don't know, he does a great job with KFAN out there. He's one of the biggest names, great Timberwolves insight. He actually had me on the show when I was out there for the playoffs.
You were terrific. Yeah, we loved having you on.
We had a great combo.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Dan.
Really
Appreciate it.
We'll talk to you again in the season. Thanks, man. Be good.
Thanks, Dan.
Shout out to Dan and Tim one more time for joining us on today's program. We really appreciate them coming in to share their insight and expertise on these two teams that we so badly want to beat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gave us the blueprint.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. All right. We do have a super chat here from Leo. Thank you, Leo. Leo said, Saul, if you're watching, please come back soon. We miss you. Leo, you can catch Saul tomorrow at 9 a.m. on Outside Shots with Eddie Johnson. Don't miss it.
Eddie's guaranteed to say something as inflammatory as I say. So.
Facts. Eddie's been on one lately. It's been great. So don't miss that show tomorrow again at 9 a.m. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you. Hit that thumbs up button if you are here on YouTube. Do it, Espo. Thank you. Go. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, give the show a follow on social at PHNX_Suns. You can also follow me at Lindsay Smith AZ. You can follow Gerald at Gerald Bourget, and you can follow Espo at Espo. Espo, take us home.
Remember, Luka a hoe, and Derek's just wrong for PHNX. Ahoy hoy!
We all silly like the mayor.